नए साल मुबारक वो पूरी समाज आशीर्वाद दिल जमुते गुरु महाराज नए साल मुबारक वो पूरी समाज आशीर्वाद दिल जमुते गुरु महाराज.
So Navdanya, which means 9 seeds as well as the new gift, is a movement I started in 1987. And here at the Navdanya farm, the first thing we do is save seeds. We save more than 1,500 varieties and we grow them out. We save them, as we call, in situ, by growing them out and keeping them alive and allowing them to adapt to the changing climate, to too much rain one year, too little rain the next year. It's also a place where farmers come to get seed. In addition to that, it is an organic farm, an ecological farm. And I feel very happy because we started this as a desert, a eucalyptus desert. And as we have practiced organic farming, the soils are alive, the pollinators have come back, the butterflies are busy, and we can see that it has become a biodiversity sanctuary. The third thing we do here is knowledge generation, both in terms of training as well as in research. In terms of research, our research is showing that ecological systems, biodiverse systems, can produce 2 to 5 times more food per acre than the industrial monocultures. And the lie of industrial farming, the lie of genetic engineering, has been put to rest by the loving practices of this farm. The Bij Vidyapeeth is the learning center, Bij Vidyapeeth learning from the seed. And we learn from the seed renewal, we learn from the seed generosity, we learn from the seed multiplicity, we learn from the seed diversity. And of course right now we are busy with the Grandmothers University because grandmothers are the best holders of the continuity of the cultural diversity that linked with biological diversity. They are the link of the past to the future. Every generation of grandmothers has brought the relevant past into the present and handed it over to the future. And we are going through a huge crisis. It breaks my heart each time I come back to Dehradun, which is my hometown. Every time I come back, there's a new Pizza Hut, a new KFC, a new McDonald's, and we are under an invasion, a cultural invasion around our food system. And therefore things like the Grandmothers University become very, very important. In addition to this, it's a place where we welcome people to come, reflect, learn. So you can see Vidya Rao, a classical singer, practicing behind me, an Ayurvedic practitioner having a discussion with another group, the interns busy, the course people busy with their sessions. And we want this to be a place which is hospitable to every species and to every culture.
Why the urgency of keeping seeds now in India and in the world?
The emergency of saving seeds is because seed has now been appropriated and colonized. Corporations have declared it is their intellectual property. And the only way they can get intellectual property is by modifying, mutilating seed through genetic engineering. So we have a double hazard. The hazard of genetic engineering and the hazard of seed patenting. We have seen what this combination does in the area of cotton. India is the land of cotton. We used to grow 1,500 varieties of cotton. This is the land where Gandhi spun freedom through cotton. I started Navdanya inspired by the spinning wheel. I said the seed is today's spinning wheel. And today the seed itself is under threat because all of the cotton that we could spin is now genetically engineered BT cotton under the control of one company, Monsanto. That's why if we don't save seeds, all that diversity will go forever, with it the memory that is in the seed, the ecological memory, the cultural memory, with it the livelihood of farmers. The takeover by BT cotton has pushed farmers into such deep debt that they're now committing suicide. We have had 250,000 suicides in India in the last decade. We can't see that happen with growers of corn, with growers of tomato, with growers of onion, with growers of rice. We only have experience with one crop, cotton. And we've seen what it does. It devastates nature, it devastates farmers, it devastates our agriculture. We have to defend life and that's why we have to save seeds. We have to defend our freedom, and that's why we have to save seeds.
Great. You say organic agriculture is not just a question of farming, also of saving earth and the life of the farmers. Why?
Well, for us, ecological farming, organic farming, and it doesn't matter how you call it, as long as you work with the laws of nature, her nutrient laws of recycling, her hydrological laws of recycling water, her laws of biodiversity and the web of life, if you work with that, it doesn't matter what you call it. Working with nature means, first of all, you protect nature. You're not at war with nature, because industrial agriculture has come out of war and perpetrates a war against nature and the earth. Secondly, it's farmer friendly. An agriculture based on war sells war chemicals to farmers, sells genetically modified patented seed to farmers. Farmers get into debt, and either they leave the land and become refugees and migrants, or they end their lives. An agriculture that's ecological works with internal inputs that the farm provides, the earth provides. The soil fertility comes from the crops that the earth gave. The pest control comes from the diversity that the earth gave. You don't need to buy anything in the market. The earth is generously saying, take everything from me. The third, it's beneficial for the eater, because when you produce food in nature's ways, you're producing healthy food, delicious food, tasty food, diverse food, nutritious food, and you can taste it in the Navdanya kitchen, where the food that we cultivate here is cooked in the kitchen. And I can tell you, I travel the world, I eat the best food cooked by the best chefs in the world, because being in the organic movement, that's what you're offered. There's no food better than what the Navdanya kitchen serves.
GM is often propagated as a solution to the food crisis. Now, how can we overcome this myth?
I think the two ways to overcome the myth is to look at the science of GM. Genetic engineering only relocates a gene with a property. Now, the only genes that have one property is toxic genes for producing toxins. Everything else that is a positive property of yield or resilience to the environment, drought resistance, flood resistance, or issues of color, flavor, taste, are highly complex traits. They use multiple genes. You can't relocate multiple genes through genetic engineering. It's a highly crude tool. It's like with the gun, all you can do is shoot. With a gene gun, all you can do is shoot one gene with one trait. Life is too complex. You cannot shoot life's complex self-organizing capacity. You can love it, maintain it, be aware of it, but you can't shoot it. So it's a primitive and crude technology. Secondly, the promises that this was going to produce more food, which was a lie technically anyway from the beginning, has now been proven. In India, they said the cotton that was genetically engineered would give 1,500 kilograms per acre. The company, after lying their way to farmers, pushing them to suicide, has to admit it's 500 kilograms per acre, and our varieties outcompete this. We've just distributed cotton varieties, traditional varieties, to farmers in Vidarbha in the suicide belt, and they have more performance, a higher performance. And they don't grow alone. They don't grow in a monoculture. They allow you to have food, they allow you to have tur, they allow you to have jowar. There are only two applications that have been spread in the world because of the crudeness of the technology: herbicide-resistant crops and Bt toxin crops. One has a toxic gene for tolerating high doses of the company's own herbicide, and the other has a toxic gene to produce a pesticide inside the plant. One was supposed to control weeds, the other was supposed to control pests. One has given us super weeds. So serious is the damage that millions of acres in the US are now devastated, and Monsanto is bribing farmers with $12 an acre to say, go buy more lethal herbicides like Agent Orange 2,4-D to spray on the super resistant Roundup weeds. In the case of Bt toxin, in India, the bollworm itself has become resistant. Monsanto is now selling Bolgard 2. New pests have emerged everywhere, and farmers are spending 13-fold more in pesticide use. So actually, genetic engineering was brought as an alternative to chemicals. It has increased the use of chemicals, which works wonderfully for the industry, because the biotech industry is the agricultural industry, and people just need to recognize that to know this is not an alternative. The alternative is ecological farming.
What do you think about the so-called progress of our third world countries?
Development and progress. Growth merely measures how much you sell and buy. So if I destroy my farm and buying food, I'm contributing to growth, but I'm also contributing to hunger. And India is such a clear example. We are the country with the highest rate of growth, 9%, in spite of the economic slowdown at world levels. And yet we have become, during this period of high growth, the capital of hunger and malnutrition in the world. The shadow of growth, development and progress is hunger, is displacement, is loss of culture, and the creation of deep, irreversible poverty and misery for the large majority, and for a few people on the top, huge concentration of wealth. So India also has, among the top 100 billionaires of the world, at least 20 robbers who've taken the resources from the people, grabbed the land of the farmers, sold us electricity that was ours as a public good and as commons, sold us the gas and oil that used to be ours at super profits. This kind of economy, which is sold to us in the name of progress, development, growth, is an economy of theft. It is an economy of enclosures of the commons, of privatization of public goods. And that's why we need another economy. I call it living economies. I call it biodiversity economies. And I think the world desperately needs an alternative.
Given that it's expected that by 2050, 70% of the world population will live in cities, do we need to reorganize ourselves the way we feed people, a city-centric kind of population, or do we relook at the way we design cities themselves?
Well, first is these linear projections are very patriarchal. They come out of a hugely manipulative, controlling patriarchal mind. They come out of World Bank saying, let's push the farmers out of the city. They come out of the leaders in Delhi who say there are too many farmers in India. There are never too many farmers anyway. A 2-acre farmer is taking nothing away from anybody. The person who's grabbing his land or her land is the problem. The ecological footprint is the footprint of industry. It's the footprint of globalization. So we actually need more people on the land. And at least I work for a vision where we won't have 70% people in the cities. I feel so happy that so many of the young people in the team of Navdanya have moved back to the villages from the cities, because we've created an excitement that there's things to do in the village. This is not a place of curse. It's a place of resurgence. But whatever number is in the cities, every city should have its own food shed. Food should become part of town planning. Not only should cities, according to their size, have surrounding areas that provide food according to the culture, according to the climate, according to seasonality, so that every city is supplied by localized food systems, but every city inside the city must have urban gardens. And that is why Navdanya has started Gardens of Hope.
What do you think are the wrong solutions to climate change, and what do you think where do the right ones lie?
Yeah. Well, among the wrong solutions to climate change are genetic engineering. It's being offered now, not as a solution to hunger. It's amazing if you keep track of the industry, how quickly they change the reason why they exist. First it was about hunger, and now it's about climate change. They will make the situation worse. In any case, they have nothing to offer because they're stealing the seeds of the farmers that they are now patenting as climate resilient crops. So rather than go to Monsanto and pay them a royalty, just go to a friendly farmer and take a climate resilient seed. Another false solution is biofuel, which has contributed to hunger according to the World Bank and IMF. 75% of the price rise of 2008 was because of diversion of food to biofuel. A third false solution is geoengineering. The hubris that we've made a mess with the climate because we didn't understand nature's fragile systems. Now we'll make a deeper mess and create artificial volcanoes, reflect the sun back as if the sun was the problem and not the irresponsible actions of greedy humans.
And what do you think is the role of civil society? What greater role can civil society play?
Well, in a time where society used to have 3 pillars: the government or the state, business, and citizens. 2 of those pillars have now merged. Corporations and the state have merged to become a corporate state. And therefore today, the civil society is not just a countervailing force to government, it has to be a countervailing force to corporations and the merger of the state with corporations in terms of the interest. So civil society cannot take for granted that the governments which they put in place which in democracy are supposed to be of the people, by the people, for the people, will continue to act in people's interests. They're acting in corporate interests. Governments have become by the people, by the corporations, of the corporations, for the corporations. And therefore, only a vigilant, active, highly energized civil society can defend the rights of citizens. We can't take our freedoms for granted anymore.
And how you see the panorama of the world? Do
You have a
hope?
positive vision of the future?
Well, we are talking at times where the Middle East is rising and the Libyan rebellion is being crushed by an internal war within Libya. We live in times where an earthquake, a tsunami, and now the nuclear hazard has shaken up one of the most prosperous countries of the world, Japan. When you see those kind of events, you have to take seriously the fact that we live in highly destructive, highly vulnerable times. But in spite of that, I have hope. I have hope because I have deep trust in the earth. She is more resilient than all our actions. And secondly, I have deep trust in people and their unrepressible urge for freedom and happiness.
नए साल मुबारक हो होली समाज आशीर्वाद देला मुते गुरु महाराज नए साल मुबारक हो होली समाज आशीर्वाद देला मुते